All right, Rocky Top Insider postgame. Ryan Shumpert, Rick Butler standing here on the field. Tennessee wins their season opener, 69-3. Ryan, a dominant affair here in Neyland Stadium. Tennessee put 45 points on the board in the first half alone. Took a couple of the starters out after that. But really, if you look at that first half, it was dominant from Tennessee. I believe 7 straight scoring drives to open the game.
Yep, 7 straight scoring drives, 6 touchdowns on those 7 scoring drives, and then the last 2 drives of the first half, Tennessee did not score.
There you go. Well, let's kind of start with, I think, what most people have been talking about throughout the offseason, what most people want to talk about today, and that was a superstar performance from Nico Iamaleava. He actually sets a Tennessee program record for first-half passing yards, 314 throughout his outing. He did say after the game that he wishes he could maybe clean up a little bit of that last drive going into halftime, but I thought ultimately he was a superstar in the making for Tennessee tonight. He was accurate. He was crisp. Yes, we're talking about a Chattanooga opponent. I think all of that is kind of baked into it. But at the end of the day, you can also look at just fundamental quarterback play and know that he did the things that it felt like Tennessee wants him to do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 2 things can be true. You're not going to crown him after a game against Chattanooga, but he also, there's not much else you would have asked from him. I mean, he was about as good as you could want him to be in a game like this. I thought his decision-making, his ability to prolong plays, and then you saw the arm talent, too. The ball he kind of threw down the sideline when the safety was just a step late to Dante Thornton was really impressive. Just to zip on some of those throws over the middle that Tennessee hit. Brew McCoy made a nice catch on one that was slightly behind him, but 2 really good ones, one to Chris Brazell and another one to Dante Thornton. So, and you saw the legs a little bit as well. So he was really, really good, all you would expect. And, I thought he would at least play 3 quarters, but there were so many possessions in the first half, and the offense was so good. Just played that first half, and Tennessee handed it over to Gaston Moore and then Jake Merklinger in the second.
Yeah, speaking of Dante's, I saw Dante Stallworth, the former Vol, on Twitter today, and he was really raving about what Nico was able to do. Man, when you can hit those sidelines against cover 2, when you can attack the middle of the field with the seam, I think those are all good things. We saw Nico go back to his love for the tight ends, especially in the red zone. I believe that's where both of his touchdowns last year came from, to McAllen Castles. He connects with Ethan Davis, but then he connects 2 times in a row with Dante Thornton. I really liked what Tennessee was able to do in getting Dante Thornton the ball early. They got Chris Brazell the ball. I think he was the first maybe reception of the game.
First play of the game,
First play of the game. I like getting those guys involved early. I like what Tennessee was able to do those. You want to get those 2 guys comfortable. We know what Brew McCoy can do. We know what Squirrel White can do. But I think those 2 guys maybe give Tennessee a little bit of an extra X factor. I like getting them involved in the game early, having them catch a pass, getting them comfortable, seeing what you can do past that from then on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Brew McCoy, just from the injury standpoint, it's good to get him the ball early and try to get him as comfortable as possible and kind of get those nerves or whatever angst there is out of the way. And then, Brazell, I mean, I thought that's maybe on that first play what I really liked about it is one of the things you talk about with Nico, of being able to extend plays and make throws on the run, which is something Tennessee hasn't had a ton of, even when their offense has been really good under Josh Heupel, and that's what he did on that first play. So I completely agree. Kind of somewhat shades to the orange and white game 2 years ago, which is the first time we really saw Nico. A nice throw on the sideline to Ethan Davis on a broken play that was kind of similar to that. So you saw a lot of that talent, and like you said, you saw him utilize Ethan Davis there over the middle in the red zone. And really, I think when you talk about Tennessee's offense as a whole, more throwing over the middle today than we've seen really at any point. It felt like a lot of posts, a lot of crossers when Tennessee got man-on-man coverage they were able to take advantage of.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things we talked about sort of heading into this season, heading into this game, is we wanted to see Tennessee have that downfield passing a little bit more. Certainly seems like they have the right pieces to make that happen. Not just downfield passing, though. They were also able to get it done on the ground. Dylan Sampson, he was phenomenal for Tennessee, a guy who might have been a little bit limited during fall camp, but a guy who you also know can turn the Jets on when the season comes. He was terrific. I believe 124 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground today. Also had 4 touchdowns in the season opener last year. Guy likes the season opener.
He does.
Guy likes to start the season off with a bang.
He does, yeah, no, and it was kind of to the same extent of, there was never anything serious that he was out with in fall camp. He kind of felt the same way today, at least I did today. I think the second drive he had a good run, and he was kind of not going down while a guy had him wrapped up, and Javonte Spraggins came in and tried to push him forward and kind of hit him, and I was like, that's enough Dylan Sampson for today. Tennessee should get to next week and not use Dylan Sampson anymore. But he was really good, and I thought we got a little bit of clarity on what the running back room looks like behind him, and it wasn't necessarily a huge shock. I think Cam Seldon and Deshaun Bishop are some version of 2-3. Obviously, Cam Seldon got more carries today, was the second running back today. I thought both those guys did some good things, and then that's where the drop-off is. After them, Peyton Lewis, the 4th running back, Khalif Keefe, the 5th running back. But I think you're going to see Dylan Sampson is going to be the clear number 1. He's going to get the most carries or the most touches of any of those guys. But I think you're going to see Sean Bishop, Cam Selden both play every single game, and their carries, their touches, their drives, at least, probably more than anything, are going to look pretty similar to one another.
Yeah, and I especially think situationally, because those two guys are not exactly the same type of running backs. They got a little bit different bodies. They got a little bit different build. I think that Tennessee is going to be able to rotate them again situationally, find the right advantages to bring them in. Ryan, when you talk about the defensive side of the ball, Chattanooga did not test Tennessee very much, especially in the first half when Tennessee was kind of going through with their main starters. But one of the guys I thought who played really well, we actually got to talk to him a second ago in the press conference, was Tyree West. He made a huge play in the first half. I believe forced a fumble that Joshua Joseph eventually recovered. But, man, he barreled in. I think that was the exact word I used on Twitter. Barreled into the backfield, made a big play. He looks like a guy that might be sort of coming into his own. Josh Heupel talked about just how much more kind of comfortable he is with this defense. He talked about how for Tyree West, it's less about trying to figure out what the right decision is going to be. Seems like he's playing a little bit more instinctually with this defense. What you like about the way that he played?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said, the talent, and just kind of played violent. He had the sack, too, in the first half. I believe Tennessee's only sack of the day. Though, as Josh Heupel said, a lot of getting it out quick for Chattanooga and a lot of running the ball and passing situations. But no, he looked really good, and he continued. I mean, he was a guy that played really good in the Citrus Bowl. And I think when you look at Tennessee's defensive line, the question of how good they can be is a lot of factored around, is there anybody on the defensive line outside James Pierce that can become an elite guy? And Dominic Bailey at defense end, he was the first guy to start today. You know what he is. He's a good player. He's a solid player. Tyree West, I think, has a little bit more juice to his game and a little bit higher ceiling. So just Chattanooga, but he made a lot of plays. He was in the backfield frequently. I thought that was really encouraging, and we'll see if he can continue to do that moving forward.
You mentioned juice there. Josh Heupel said that he thought the fans were a little bit juicy during the game, which I thought was funny. Who else stood out to you, maybe?
I mean, I think defensively.
Or what else maybe stood out to you?
Yeah, like you said, there wasn't a ton to really take from anything defensively that I thought was super interesting. I guess the rotation standpoint. I guess the big thing on defense, Ricky Gibson did not play today, and it seemed like it was maybe a hamstring injury, a little banged up. That'll be something very much worth monitoring going into next week. NC State's got a good passing game. Jalen McMurray gets to start. You wonder who's the third quarter, Jordan Matthews or Jalen McMurray. It's a Temple transfer, Jalen McMurray. He gets to start. I thought good bit of rotation between those three guys. At least were pretty even, and then deeper into the game, you got deeper into the depth chart. Linebacker, Keenan Pili, Aaron Carter, as we expected. I thought the rotation there was about what we expected. Star, true 50-50 in meaningful action. Christian Harrison got the start, but it was every single drive. I thought Boot Carter, his athleticism and his speed blitzing the quarterback was something that stood out to me, just how quick he got off the end. So that was worth noting. And safety, some rotation, but it felt like less rotation there than maybe some other spots of the defense. Almost to the point where, next week against North Carolina State, I think Andre Turrentine, Will Brooks, I expect to see those guys play 50, 60 snaps. To me, it feels like they're the clear 1-2.
You mentioned Boot Carter putting pressure on the quarterback. That was something that Keenan Pili even kind of smiled about at the end of the game. It seemed like Tennessee's players knew that was kind of going to be a wrinkle that was coming, and you got to see it today. All right. So
they blitz from that star spot a lot, which I think is one of the things that makes him intriguing with his athleticism. You worry about maybe the freshman all understanding all the coverages, but that's just a pure athleticism play, and he definitely has more burst than I think anybody that Tennessee's played at that star spot.
So I'm going to ask you to save your main thoughts for the podcast here. We'll go record it here soon, but just kind of first game takeaways. Tennessee's got a new team. I think, to me, you can obviously tell that this team has improved from last year, not just because of the quarterback play, not just because of the more explosive receivers that they have, but I just think that it's a deeper team, and I think you can definitely tell that. It's a defensive line that you didn't maybe get to see it in its full effect today, but that's because Tennessee maybe didn't need it. So I think that, from a lot of points, it's a younger team maybe in some specific areas, but again, it's a deeper team. It's a more explosive team. I think the sky's the limit for Tennessee here this year. What do you take away from this?
I think it's something we talked about in our RTI group chat, that in games like this, there's really typically not a ton to take from the good. There's only stuff you can take from the bad, but there wasn't a ton of bad that you would really point to today. Like you said, Chattanooga didn't really test Tennessee's secondary. That's the thing that you'd want to see, where you feel like the potential bad can be. But a really good opener, and it's dangerous business, probably not smart to do the comparing of how teams did in certain games and transitive property. But Chattanooga's supposed to be a better team in the SoCon. I believe picked to win the SoCon in Western Carolina. Tennessee won 63-3 today. North Carolina State would end up winning by 17, but was down going into the fourth quarter against Western Carolina. So from a pure Week 1 standpoint, you feel like Tennessee's in a better spot than the Wolfpack next week as both teams head to Charlotte.
It's going to wrap it up for us here with the RTI post-game show. Again, we will be back with the podcast here very soon to kind of break down our thoughts in more detail. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Tennessee dominates their season opener 69-3.
69-3, yes.
66.
I think I said 63-3. I might have thrown you off.
No, 66-point win. We'll call it that. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. Rocky Top Insider post-game show.